Hi, I'm Kenneth Wajda. I'm a professional photographer here in Colorado. Welcome to another one of my daily or weekly YouTube video photo talks. So today I want to talk about what is street photography now? What has it become? Like, I just taught a street photography class, so I did a presentation of a lot of the history of the origins of street photography, all the way back to Walker Evans and Aceh from France and Berenice Abbott working in New York, or I'm trying to think of the people before the ones that are really well known, like Robert Frank and Winogrand. And all of them were documenting the way people live. And they were looking for interesting characters in those places of how people live. But there was a certain documentary quality to their work. They were photographing people on the street in the clothing of the day, and we're doing that now. And they were photographing people doing and going about their lives like they do, and we're doing that now. But there's something different. I was looking at the Hardcore Photography Street group. It's a Flickr group, and it's curated. They're very selective of what they put up there. And tell me that that's just because they use the word hardcore, that everything in their selection is crazy, weird pictures of people with faces that are exploding or vomiting. I just don't understand what is happening in street photography right now. It's almost like street photography wants to be contemporary art. And contemporary art wants to be something that isn't literal. It has to be figuratively created from an artist's perspective. But street photography now, it feels like anytime you look at street awards, unless you're shooting that look to me that I would call outlandish, over the top, garish colors, unless you're doing that, I don't think there's any reason to enter. I don't think that there's any chance you can win. Because I think that those are only open and only accepting of the photo of the person who is falling over with their head in a bush. It just seems like that's the style right now. And I wonder, when young street photographers are going out, and there's a lot of people who are interested in street photography, when young photographers are going out, are they going out and they're only looking for those kinds of scenes, and are they missing the documentary work that used to be made? And I don't think that just because somebody is working in documentary means that just shoot pictures of people sitting on their phones. I don't think that's terribly interesting either. I think it has to go beyond just documenting boring. It doesn't mean documentary can't be interesting, because Winogrand was shooting regular people, but there was something interesting either about the way they're dressed, their expressions, what they're doing, their juxtaposition with other people. So documentary doesn't seem to me it has to be straight and flat and not of interest. I think that there can be a lot of art to documentary, and even my own street work, I think that I'm very happy with the kinds of work that I make. But I know that it won't win awards. It's not going to go into contests because it's not the right look. And it's not all just pictures of people standing on their phone. But that is the quality of what is right now being celebrated. And I would even go further to say that's not necessarily a right or wrong thing. It's just an is thing. If that is what's popular, then that's what's being made, and then there's more being made, and more photographers jump on board to try to do more of that. And that's completely valid as an art form, but I still wonder what's being left off of the gallery walls, or what's being left out of view, or what's not even being made, because the people who are going out, if their goal is to get likes, if their goal is to get wins and place in those contests, then there's no reason to shoot the things that are people being people in more ordinary situations. I don't know. It just seems like street photography goes through cycles. And maybe because we're in a time where it feels like everything is fast and everything is overdone, and maybe it's a little bit shallow sometimes, the way the internet has made everybody into their phones. And maybe there's a reflection of the work is a part of that kind of a culture where we're also distracted and busy. We need something that's going to be over the top to even catch our eye. Because, hey, you know, most people only look at this at 3 inches or 2 inches on a screen. That's as much time as they can give something, unless it's spectacularly, fantastically eye-grabbing. And maybe that's it. And maybe they want to be an influencer more than a photographer. But for me, it feels like I go to that hardcore photography group and it almost feels like I'm exhausted looking at it. When I look at those photographs, I'm not entertained by the works of Walker Evans or Berenice Abbott or Robert Frank or Winogrand. I'm not entertained. I'm absolutely, actually exhausted. It's like it's too much to like just look at all of that. It's almost like every action movie starts with an action scene because that's the way that they write to get you pulled in from the start. But if that action scene lasted the whole film, you would be exhausted and you would hate it, because it's like you need downtime to make the uptime so you know which is which, right? You need good to know which is bad. You need to know what bright is to know what dark is. It's all relative. And it feels like the style that's popular right now, that gets the likes, that gets the wins, it's so over the top. It's so overly saturated. It's so photoshopped that it feels like I don't connect to it. And I don't know what street photography will become later, if there will be a future for street photography that'll go in waves. I guess things always change, so it'll probably go in some kind of a wave. But at the moment, I wonder, what's your interest in street photography, and what do you do? And do you look for a certain kind? And have you entered a contest? And have you won with anything that is a certain kind of a look? Have you approached street photography with a certain kind of an eye because you're trying to get those kinds of crazy moments? It's not what I look for. I look for little moments of people interacting and doing things that might be visually interesting and that tell a little story. And to me, the story is what's first. It's almost like the difference between, there are two kinds of street photographers. There are standers and there are walkers. The standers find a spot of wall with a shaft of light and they wait for a red hatted person with a yellow umbrella to walk through it. And then there are walkers who just walk and look and keep walking. And I'm a walker. And I think maybe for my photojournalist training, I enjoy graphics, but I'm not just looking for graphics, I'm looking for story. And story is where my photography really lies. And again, I'll go back to say, none of it is, there's no right or wrong in art. But it's what's right for me is certainly much more story-based. And there are some great graphics that are made by photographers doing street with that shaft of light and that red and yellow. But for me, that's not enough. I don't want to make street graphics. I want to tell stories of people. And if one of those ends up in that collection, that's fine. But the point is, my focus is certainly much more toward getting that story. So for me, that's what street photography really is. And maybe we need another category called documentary, urban, or documentary, or just call it photography, but document the people living today and what is that isn't all the way at that upper level, that, you know, really extreme level. Even like the British photographer Martin Parr, he's well known, he puts out a lot of work, and even that, it's all very much like, it just seems like it shouts at you. That's the style. I'll be interested in your comments and your thoughts. All right, that's today's photography talk. If you're enjoying these, please hit the subscribe button. If you could support, I thank all my supporters. Hit the Patreon, and I'll be back next week. We'll talk photography. As always, here's the good light.